After 24 years after winning Best Original Screenplay, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are back together writing, and this time with a medieval epic directed by Ridley Scott. This is my review of The Last Duel. King Charles VI of France declares Knight Jean de Carouge to settle his dispute with his squire and friend by challenging him to a duel after the latter is accused of rape by Jean de Carouge's wife. Quickly before we start with my review, I want you to start the conversation down in the comments below about The Last Duel, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, Ridley Scott, anything and everything down there. Just start the conversation because it's always the most important part. And if you like what you see here, make sure you click that subscribe button so you do not miss any future conversation about your favorite movies and TV. As stated in the intro, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon have been away from writing together for 24 years, so it's just great and historic kind of to see them coming together again. But there's actually a very important third writer here, and that is Nicole Holofcener, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. She writes the female perspective, and what do I mean by female perspective is because this story, The Last Duel, is divided in chapters. There's the truth according to Jean de Carouge, and that is Matt Damon. There's the truth according to Jacques Legris, and that is Adam Driver. And finally, there's the truth according to Marguerite de Carouge, and that is obviously Jodie Comer, who we'll talk about in a sec because she steals the entire show. First of all, I really love this story structure. It's based clearly off of Rashomon, which is a very famous Japanese film directed by Akira Kurosawa, which is in itself, it's a trial in which we are presented three different perspectives, and then we, the audience, have to figure out which is the truth. I just love the story structure because it's unique. We don't see it very often, so it feels fresh, and in this case, it's not just a gimmick. There's these little intricacies, details, and nuances that you see in each of the stories that add and flourish each of them out. In the first two specifically, there's clearly a lot of self-perception when it comes to telling the truth according to this person, telling the truth according to this person. And it's kind of feels like you're seeing these people as very black and white people. There's no real three-dimensionality to what they do and who they are, and you can clearly feel that through the film and how it's telling its story. As the chapter starts, you see the truth according to this person, and then we see that person's perspective. So when we come into the third chapter, we start to see a lot of these things with a lot more nuance. There's a lot more of gray area. There's a lot more three-dimensionality, and that's not a bad thing. We start to see that these people, oh, they really did these good things, but they're not perfect. They have these flaws that make them very human, and so it enriches the drama. It makes it all very compelling. It also adds to the fact that it engages you into the story, as you'll see the stories and you're like, oh wait, this one person has said this, but now the other person is saying that, and the inflection is kind of different, and the order of events is a bit different as well, and so that enriches the world, that gives you a new perspective. And I love how intricate and detailed each of these sections are when you do have repeated scenes shown from the other perspective. And obviously no one falters when it comes to their performances. To no surprise, Matt Damon is great, Ben Affleck is great. He plays this very quirky character in one of the stories. We start seeing this very human side of him, but that you don't expect because the previous story shows him as this very poised, serious man who takes no shits, gives no shits. He's just this very one-note guy. Now we start to see this fun side, even if reprehensible side of him. And Adam Driver is also great, but Jodie Comer is a powerhouse. She has to do a lot in this film, emotionally speaking, and never necessarily through dialogue, but she's the one person that has to interact with all these characters and play with these level of emotions that is constantly impressive from beginning to end. And speaking of her, this deserves a trigger warning in its own. There is a rape scene in this film. In fact, there are technically two rape scenes. It's just telling that one scene from two different perspectives. There are small little details that are different in one another. You don't see skin, you don't see any nudity, but it's nevertheless brutal in itself because it focuses a lot on the perspective of the character who is being the victim of this as you see it. So this isn't a good thing. I'm not saying it's amazing that they shot this so brutally. It's just something that happens in the film, and I think if you haven't seen the film, if you're watching my review before the film, first of all, thank you very much, but just be prepared to see something like that, because I'm sure it's not easy because of how realistically it is done. And in that regard, filmmaking-wise, well done, but it deserves its own warning. Moving on to the fun kind of brutality that we want to talk about when it comes to these things. This is not an action film. This is actually a very heavy drama where it's actually a story of a deteriorating friendship, and now it comes to a head when it involves this third party that is the one that suffers the most between these two men. So it's just really great to see them start out as friends, and little by little, as they go on with their own lives, doing their own things separately, they kind of always constantly see themselves pulled back into one another's lives for the worst possible reasons, and it keeps escalating as the years go by and as they find themselves going into the last duel and why they're in the last duel. But so even though it is a very heavy drama, there is some action, and when the action is there, it is very brutal. The duel itself, it's very visceral. It's shot very well, but it's shot very up close. This isn't like a big epic thing. It's just these two men going at it, trying to literally fight for their lives. But there are some big battle sequences that are fun to watch, just very brutal and raw. They're not pretty. They don't have like these amazing martial arts moves. They're just brawls. And so I found The Last Duel to use the story structure very well because, again, it's not just because, hey, let's do something different. No, they utilize and weaponize, most importantly, each and every element of the film that comes with telling a story this way as far as the world is concerned, the characters, the deteriorating friendship, and the relationships between each and every key player in the story. And I think it does a lot well in that regard. It does take a risk in doing that, and not everything pays off for it. I think the film trusts too much that there are certain scenes that need to be repeated when they really don't. They add nothing of those little nuances and details that I talked about. It just trusts the audience to be okay with it, and I don't think it always pays off. Sometimes you can definitely feel, okay, we could have removed this because it's not adding any new perspectives to this certain event, but we're still seeing it repeated with no use or addition to the story. My biggest issue, however, is that I wanted at the end of the film to have been left in a space of ambiguity. This film clearly answers your questions about what really happened, especially when it goes into the third chapter. It does something that lets you know what is the truth, and I just wish there was more nuance to it. There was more ambiguity. It wasn't really clear what happened. I understand the film wants to choose a side, and in that regard, I don't think it's quote-unquote wrong. Just would have been my preference to leave things to ponder for the audience, for the discussion that comes after it. The Last Duel is an intelligent and genuinely daring return to form from screenwriters Ben Affleck and Matt Damon alongside Nicole Holofcener and Ridley Scott directing his biggest epic in a long time. He does not disappoint when it comes to his action, his big budget productions. This looks great, this pays off, and I think it just has a lot more levels to it when it comes to a screenplay level that I really appreciated. I'm giving The Last Duel an A-. But those are my thoughts on The Last Duel. I want to know what you think about it. Let me know in the comments below. Start the conversation. It's the most important part. Thank you so much for watching. And if you like what you saw here, make sure you click that subscribe button so you did not miss any future conversation about your favorite movies and TV. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back very soon as we still have more LFF coverage to take care of. And there should be a playlist right up here right now for you to check out all the London Film Festival coverage so far. Thank you so much once more. I'll be back very soon. So until the next one, love each other and love the movies.